Welcome to another lecture in the FOA series of lectures on fiber optics. This is a special presentation. What we're going to talk about is where are the jobs in fiber optics. And this is tied into an update of our FOA jobs page, which is accessible off the FOA homepage on the web. This composite photo of the Earth from space, taken by NASA, shows all the lights from where all the people live around the world. And this shows how all of those people communicate. These are the submarine cables that connect all the centers of civilization around the world. These submarine cables have replaced almost all other forms of communications in most areas of the Earth, except for a few remote areas that rely on satellites. But we don't know much about these cables usually, or who actually does the installation. Since we're talking about jobs, we'll take a look at them. These cables are made on land, loaded in large ships, and then spooled out from location to location to create these submarine communication links. Now, this is an area of great importance to communications and to fiber optics, but it's a very, very specialized job market, and not too many people work on these kinds of jobs. Many of the jobs in fiber optics are in what we call traditional telecommunications, but that also today involves the internet. These are long-distance links where fiber has replaced copper or radio, and these links are constantly being upgraded, moving to Internet Protocol and all optical protocols from 10 to 100 gigabits per second, with 400 gigabits per second and terabits per second coming. These links are typically wavelength division multiplexing. Even fiber is used for backhaul on wireless and fiber to the home. So let's look at some of the opportunities for jobs here. There's a lot more fiber optics on land than under the sea. There are fiber optic cable plants connecting virtually all major population centers around the world, like here in the United States. The installations may be aerial, buried, or underground, and these networks are under constant expansion worldwide. The jobs here are straightforward. They're for techs who have experience and knowledge and certification in the installation of aerial, buried, and underground cable plants involving outside plant cables, splicing, testing, with good skills required for things like OTDRs. There are also quite a few jobs available now for people who are testing current fiber optic cable plant for upgrades. They're always being used for higher bitrate systems and for more wavelengths. So the systems need to be tested for insertion loss, new OTDR traces taken, and special tests for spectral attenuation, for WDM, chromatic dispersion, and polarization mode dispersion. These are very specialized jobs, require basic knowledge of fiber optic testing and specialized knowledge of these particular tests for spectral attenuation, chromatic dispersion, and PMD. There's even more jobs available for people installing fiber to the home, because there are millions of subscribers each year being added to fiber to the home networks. These are typically passive optical networks and using triple play services for voice, data, and TV. So techs need to have basic outside plant fiber optic experience. They need to know some of the new technologies like pre-terminated or prefabricated cable systems. And in many cases, the techs doing the installation at the home are expected to go in the home and actually do the installation of phones, TVs, and computers. Here's two examples of fiber to the home networks in the US. Verizon Fios has been around for 5 or 6 years now. They typically go into a neighborhood where they deliver phone service and already have landlines and use prefabricated cabling systems to connect customers up to the fiber optic network directly. Google, of course, is going into Kansas City and soon Austin, Texas, to actually install brand new overlay networks based on aerial and underground cable plants, depending on the neighborhood. Here's an opportunity for outside plant techs to develop a very, very good portfolio and go get some good jobs. Another good opportunity for fiber techs is the wireless industry. Well, wireless isn't wireless, and it's growing like crazy, so there's a lot of jobs here. What's driving this growth is smartphones and tablets. The wireless network has to support now massive amounts of data as millions upon millions of people convert from regular old phones to smartphones and to tablets and rely on the cellular system for their data. As the cellular industry expands, it has to bring more bandwidth to their antennas, both cellular and municipal type Wi-Fi, super Wi-Fi or white space, and WiMAX. So all of these now are using more and more fiber. Those cellular towers that you see getting more and more antennas at the top have to have more and more bandwidth, and those towers then have to be connected on fiber. So this is another big outside plant job, and there are tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of these cellular towers around the world. To get fiber to the tower, it's necessary to connect the antennas, and the traditional coax cable that's used can be too heavy and too much wind resistance for the towers. So now we're seeing more and more fiber networks up the towers to the antennas. And this is good work for people who don't have acrophobia, but you have to be very careful because there's all sorts of safety issues involved. The next thing we're going to see is lots of microcells, especially in metropolitan areas. This tiny little antenna this gentleman from Alcatel-Lucent is holding is a full-fledged cellular antenna that only needs connection for power and a single fiber. And we're going to see millions of these spread over metropolitan areas, especially in urban areas, over the next few years. And those are going to require fiber techs to install the infrastructure. Most cable TV networks already have a hybrid fiber coax backbone. So there's really not a lot of jobs in expanding out the HFC networks for cable TV. But many of these operations are seeing a lot of traffic on what's called over-the-top, people going straight to the internet to download their entertainment, and they're looking at expanding their internet capacity, which may require fiber to the home. The cable TV industry even has their own version of fiber to the home called RFOG, for RF over glass. Premises or structured cabling has had options for fiber since the beginning, using it for backbones in the networks, connections to the desktop, and connections to wireless access points. Now it's also used for security systems, building alarm systems and building management systems, and practically anything that's inside a building. But traditional structured cabling limits the use of fiber in ways that don't make sense for fiber. So we're seeing a lot of interesting changes in this part of the industry. One of the biggest changes we're seeing is the adoption of fiber-to-the-home technology for local area networks. Most of this is being done with GPON or EPON, passive optical networks, and large buildings like the San Diego Public Library here, with 4,000 drops, makes an ideal place to develop a network based on a PON technology. Using this fiber-to-the-home technology, you can build a system that's half the cost and uses a quarter as much power as a traditional LAN system. And it saves tons, literally tons of copper. Another fiber-to-the-home technology, called point-to-point or active Ethernet, is also being used for what's called fiber to the office. It's basically a switched network using local switches that connect up to the devices just on patch cords. We call this fiber to the office. Both the passive optical LAN and fiber to the office technologies require techs who know something different from normal premises cabling technology. This is not multi-mode, it's single mode. It uses splitters and other types of components that may be unfamiliar to the typical structured cabling tech, so they typically need more training like the new FOA OLAN course. Data centers are the heart of the internet. They're where the data is stored and switched out to users. And the big issue here is speed. And speed takes power. So fiber tends to be more popular in data centers because, for example, a 10 gig fiber link uses about 1/5 as much power as a 10 gig copper link. There's a lot of multi-mode fiber in data centers today, but as we go beyond 10 gig, it's probably going to migrate to single mode fiber. So the premises cabling techs need to learn more about single mode and its installation in premises applications. Security systems are big users of fiber. Those video cameras that you see everywhere watching you as you walk around on the street or inside buildings are often connected on optical fiber. This is a very straightforward premises cabling type application using either single mode or multi-mode fiber. And your training will help you get jobs in this area. It's also helpful if you know the security business already, or if you're in that business, you get trained in fiber. There are even applications of using fiber as intrusion sensors outdoors, like fiber in this fence here that can detect intrusion. This is a typical, simple, outside plant cabling installation, but for a very different, very specific purpose. Another big user of fiber optics is cities, and there's a lot of jobs in installing their metropolitan networks. These are networks that typically include surveillance TV systems, traffic control, as well as city communications networks, and often involves connecting up businesses in the city who buy fiber, either dark fiber or connectivity services from the city. Because they're typically done underground, there's a lot of work on what's called micro-trenching, where you just saw a slit in the street and drop in a microduct, and then you can even use that for air-blown fiber. Sports stadiums and sporting events use lots of fiber, like that giant spool of tactical cable in the lower right-hand side is used for connecting up the TV cameras and the large TV screens for the Long Beach Grand Prix. Even all those big screens up and down the strip in Vegas are all connected on fiber. So we see a lot of it in the big public facilities, But if you go into any major building, whether it's a conference center or a church or any kind of auditorium, you're likely to find the video and audio systems using optical fiber. Typical premises cabling applications. Electrical utilities were some of the first adopters of optical fiber. They were using it to control their grid and to build sensors that can measure the amount of current and voltage in high voltage transmission lines. Now the electrical utilities are expanding out their fiber optic cable plant to build up what's called a smart grid network, and in some cases bringing fiber all the way to the home, like they do in Chattanooga. They use some unique types of components, like optical power ground wire, but for the most part, it's standard aerial outside plant installation. The oil and gas industry was also an earlier adopter because of the inherent safety of transmitting signals by light instead of electrical signals. Fiber is used today in the exploring, drilling, transporting, and refining industries. So the guys who are out running seismic sensors to find underground gas and oil are using optical fiber to connect up those sensors. The drilling towers offshore and on land, the pipelines and the refineries all are big users of optical fiber. And it's typically ruggedized outside plant components. Alternative energy systems are big users of fiber. Every one of those wind towers has a power cable taking the power back from it and optical fiber monitoring and controlling the actual system. Solar systems require massive amounts of fiber. They cover large areas and they require control and feedback on all their systems to be efficient. We've actually found jobs for 10 fiber optic techs for 2 years at one solar facility in the Mojave Desert. There are lots of industrial applications for fiber. Industrial applications like its long distance capability and its immunity to electrical noise. Where are these jobs? Everywhere. Any place that's manufacturing. Car companies, aluminum smelters, manufacturing in warehouses. Anybody doing any kind of manufacturing in any large-scale facility will have fiber. And often their maintenance people are wanting to learn how to do fiber themselves. One of my favorite applications for optical fiber is remote piloted vehicles. Because back in the early 80s, I helped train the people at Woods Hole on using fiber, and they went out to discover the Titanic. Today, everybody who uses RPVs needs to have specialized training in optical fiber. And the FOA actually has a school that trains in just this application. There's a lot more applications for fiber optics, but they may not have a lot of jobs. There literally is an application for a fiber optic switch with the kitchen sink to control the garbage disposal. And somebody has to make those Starfield roofs that cost $50,000 in a Rolls Royce. Even artists are using fiber. Not a lot of particular jobs here, but they all are interesting to us and require that same kind of knowledge of how to use fiber that everybody else in the industry needs to get, and we at the FOA try to provide. There are lots of fiber optic applications, and they're growing. So there are jobs everywhere you can imagine around the world, on every continent, Actually, even in Antarctica, they use fiber in some of the research bases. We mainly deal with communications fiber optics, and it works in all these fields. There are other jobs involved in lighting and in medical uses and in non-destructive testing, and those aren't our field. But you may find some interesting applications in those areas too, especially if you're involved in the manufacturing of components, not in the installation. The FOA tries to continually get information on where the jobs are to help you find them, and we've created a special jobs page on our website to show you how to apply for those jobs and what kind of training you need from the FOA and others to qualify for these jobs. So go to the FOA homepage, find the job page, and read it. Sign up for the FOA email newsletter, and you'll get notified when our online newsletter is updated every month. We'll try to be a source to help you find jobs in this industry and to keep this industry growing. We're the Fiber Optic Association, the worldwide nonprofit professional society of fiber optics, chartered to promote fiber optics through education, certification, and standards. Let us know how we can help you.